All right, let's do this. Okay, game artist roadmap. So today I'm going to be telling you what is game art. If you're interested in game art, I'm going to be telling you about how you can be a game artist, what skills, what approach you take, education, everything. You're going to know all about how to become a successful game artist within the next 1 hour. So let's go. All right. So who am I? Who is Rahul Saigal? I'm the founder of gamer2maker.com, which is a 100% online game development, game art, game design, and game programming portal. And I'm also the creative lead of Win Studio. Um, I have been teaching game design and production for about 12 years. I've taught at Backstage Pass, I've taught at VIT Bhopal, I've taught at Srishti Bangalore, and after I have actually worked in Vancouver, I've worked in the game industry in Piranha Games. I started my career at Gameloft, and I also work for different companies as a consultant, such as Hit Wicket Superstars, right? I've done a lot more. You can see it on my LinkedIn, but this is not about me. Let's get right into it, right? Also, I have my own game studio, and we guys are actually working on a game, a pixel art RPG called Mayu Last of the Yaksha, which you will get to know more about later. Okay, so this is going to be releasing this year on Steam, and it's pixel art. It's a really beautiful game with really nice pixel art, and really immersive storyline based on Indian culture and mythology, and you'll come to know about it soon. All right, now let's talk about game art. So there is a lot of confusion, guys, in which people use the word game designing, and they confuse game designing with game art. So what's the difference between game designing and game art? Game designing, is it making a game in Unity or Unreal, or creating some kind of art using Blender, or character modeling, rigging, and animation? What's game designing? What's game art? And what's the difference? No, game designing and game art are two completely different things. Game designing is not game art. First, let's understand a little bit about the game development process. Okay, the game development has four processes. Firstly, there is game design. Next, there is game programming. There is game art, and there is game testing. These are four very, very different processes. And if you want to understand what is game art, you have to understand where it is in the process of game development. So you have to understand the entire development process. I'll give you a little bit of an idea about what game designers do so that you don't get confused between game design and game art. Game design means answering the following questions: who is going to play this game? What is the objective of this game? How do you win? What exactly can and cannot the player do in the game? What is the player going to feel while playing the game? How can we make the player feel this way? How can we make the players spend their money for free to play games? So, game designers, they write documents, they use the game engine to create levels, etc., etc. But that's not for today. But I just wanted you to understand that game design is very different from game art. What do game artists do? Game artists, you need to really understand fully what exact game artists do. Game artists create the art assets that go inside the game, right? Can you see this character? This character was made by a game studio here in India, in Hyderabad, called Little Red Zombies. This is a game character. It was created by game artists. This is a gun which can be used in a game. This is created by game artists. This, once again, is an illustration, it's a model, it's a train, it's a tree, it's a vox. It is created by game artists, right? So, game design and game artists are very, very different roles. I need to understand that. So, what is the process of creating game art? I want to talk about that a little bit. What is the process of creating game art? And now I'm talking about not people who are kind of working by themselves at home. How do professionals do it? How do professional game studios do it? Okay, let me see which one of you can recognize this character. If you can recognize this character, let me know. um what character is this? So this is a sketch, a concept sketch, right? When you start creating game art, you don't just start with Blender or whatever. You really the in professional companies and professional game studios, the whole process starts by actually creating a sketch of whatever character or art you're going to make, and then there is an illustration. So from concept sketch, The next step is illustration. A concept sketch can have 5, 10, 15 different sketches. You can change things. A sketch can be created really, really quickly. And from the sketch, once all the people who are involved in the game project have been consulted, then you go to illustration, right? This is the sniper from TF2. And if anyone got that right, congratulations. This is a sniper character from TF2. You go from concept sketch to illustration, and then from illustration you go to something called production art. So this is actually a 3D character in the game, and this is the process. First sketch, then illustration, and then production art. So generally this is the pipeline. I'm just showing you a very rough idea of the pipeline of game art, but this is the process. No one just gets straight into production art in the professional game industry. You first start with a concept sketch. Okay, now I want to talk about the different kind of disciplines, and I will talk about the different kind of disciplines starting with 2D art. Okay, and this is uh, um, concept art. Now I'm showing you some stuff which is actually from the game I've been working on, which is Mayu, Last of the Yaksha. We have these characters which are actually in game, but this is concept art. So concept art is when you really, really make a rough sketch, or not just a rough sketch, it would even be slightly of the character. You don't spend too much time. You do a little bit of work on the concepts. You don't spend too much time, so that then it guides the 3D artist. It guides the people who are going to make the production art. So in concept art, you can make characters, creatures, environments, vehicles, weapons, scenes, and photo bashing. Right? All of these things can be done under concept art. Okay, next up in disciplines you have illustrations. So illustrations is actually the next step from concept art. This gives an actual feel of the game. This is actually a fully colored beautiful model of the game. This can be used by the 3D artists or the 2D artists to actually create production art. This can also be used for marketing the game, etc., etc., right? So these are characters, creatures, environments, vehicles, weapons, scenes, and again photo bashing. Right. So illustrations is another kind of discipline which is a part of 2D game art. Okay. Now you also have something called vector art. Vector art is something which is used. There are actually many games which are actually fully made in vector art. So it's also a kind of discipline in which you can specialize in this, and you can actually make games completely using vector art, graphic design, and motion graphics. Okay. All right. Next up, stylized art. You know which game this is. It's a very particular. It's a very particular kind of game art, which is really in vogue these days. Caricatures, doodles, comic book comics, manga, uh, and toonie. Right. Next up, let's get into 3D art. In 3D art, you have modeling. So modeling is the act of actually creating the model, the 3D model, in which again you have characters, you have vehicles, you have environments, you have architecture, you have creatures, you have weapons, you have hard surface modeling, you have organic modeling, and you have voxel art modeling. Right now, these are very kind of like complex and very deep topics, so I'm not able to explain too much in depth right now. But hopefully, if you guys want to join if you guys want to join the Q&A session after this on Zoom, you might get a little bit more idea about this. So once again, if you want to submit your questions, etc., please scan the QR code right here. And of course, there's low poly modeling as well. By the way, low poly modeling is really in huge demand, and good low poly modelers can actually make a lot of money these days, right? Next up, you have texturing. So texturing is texturing is a discipline in which you actually create textures for 3D models. You have hand painted textures, and you have materials as well. Okay, so another discipline in 3D is texturing. Next up, you have sculpting. Sculpting is actually creating the details of the face, the body, etc. For this ZBrush, etc. is used. You can again create characters, creatures. There's baking, and there's physics-based rendering, which is also a sculpting process. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of complexity to this process. There's a lot to learn, but don't be intimidated, because there's a lot to learn. Once you get into it, once you specialized, it's not that hard. It's really interesting. You can go really deep into a topic. You can go really deep into one particular specialization in game art and really get better at that. Right, let's talk about more game art disciplines. Rigging is when you actually put the bones, etc., and this is the precursor to actually animating it. Then there is something called animation is when you actually take a 3D model and you put animations on it. So you go rigging and then you go animation, and then you have lighting and compositing, which means that how does the scene look in the game, how does the model look, etc., etc., is also a very, very important topic. And then, of course, within 3D art, you have particles and visual effects. So a lot of you have questions about, can I be a VFX artist? Yes, you can be, but you have to be a 3D artist first, and then you can be a visual effects artist in the game industry. So animation and visual effects are very, very small parts of game art. Okay, it's not enough to just be a visual effects artist or you can be an animator, but you have to be at a really, really big studio to only get the job of an animator. Right now, the most important thing for a lot of you guys to remember is that there is art and animation for movies, and then there is game art, and these are not the same. It's very, very important to realize that normal art for animation movies and for game art is very, very different. It's not the same. Just because you've gone to Mac or you've gone to some institute and you've learned a little bit of art and animation for VFX, you can get into the game industry. It's not like that at all, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, remember that when you make art and animations for movies, you don't really care about something of the poly count. So what you are seeing here are polygons. Now, these polygons are really, really, really important, because what happens is that when you're rendering a scene for a movie, you can render that scene. You can take 3 days to render that scene. It's absolutely no problem. You can take 4 days to render that scene. But in games, what's happening is that your laptop or your computer is rendering the actual model real time, which means that not only does the 3D model or whatever your art you're making, does it have to look good, it has to be optimized. The file size has to be small, and also the polys have to be as low as possible. Otherwise, the game is going to lag. Okay, the game is going to lag unless the model is like the one on the left. So you have to make sure that game art is optimized. It has to have the lowest possible polys while still looking good. Right now, as you can see here, you have three different kinds. It's the same model of three different kinds. On the right side, you have the high poly model with 9,000 polys, and mid poly is 1,000, and on the left you have 562 polys. And look at the huge difference between the polys for the one on the right and the one on the left. The one on the right cannot be used in games. The one on the left can be used in games. And the skill of a game artist is to make sure that the models are optimized and still are looking good. That is the real skill of a game artist, and that is how game artists are very, very different from other artists in animation, VFX, etc. Right now, the question comes: how do you learn game art? There are two ways of doing this. You can have structured training, or you can have self-learning. Right, these are two different ways to which actually you can have an approach to learning game art. Now, for self learning, you can self learn, you can learn through YouTube or Udemy or whatever. But the problem is that it takes years and years. It takes a long time because you don't have any guidance. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. There are going to be many, many rejections from companies. You're going to be sending out your portfolio. So it's possible that people who self learn, you have to have you have to be really, really uh, you have to have a lot of guts, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes. People are going to keep rejecting you till the time you reach that skill level. Okay. And also, there's something called opportunity cost. Now, if you're self learning, say, suppose you take 3 years to self learn, or 3 or 4 years to self learn game art, right? And say, suppose you, so basically for 2 or 3 or 4 years, you're not earning, you're only learning. And the difference between that, um, is also that you have no network and community. Self learning is, you can do it. I see a lot of people trying to do it, but these are the problems. You also have no network, you have no community, because you're basically sitting by yourself in front of a computer, you're watching YouTube, and you don't have all these things. Of course, it's kind of, you don't spend much, but then you lose a lot when it comes to opportunity cost. And I'll explain what opportunity cost is. Now, if you have structured training, you can actually learn it in 1 year or less. I learned game design in 1 year, and within 1 year, I went from being a merchant navy officer. I was a game designer. Right, so that's the power of structured training and mentorship, right? And if you have structured training, there is a mentor who guides you. You don't make so many mistakes. If you make a mistake, your mistakes are corrected really, really fast, and that means you have a much shorter training period, and the quality of your work is going to be much better, much faster. You're going to have fewer rejections, in the sense that uh, you can be rejected 10, 20 times by game studios for a job. Your portfolio can be rejected similarly. If you have a structured training program, the mentor can actually help you with interviews and tests and building your portfolio, which means you have much fewer rejections, right? Next, you start earning faster. So this is where the opportunity cost comes in, right? So a lot of you guys must be thinking, look, I don't want to spend money, I want to do it for free, but you are losing a lot of money in opportunity costs. Say, suppose you spend 1 year extra self learning. Remember that you could have been earning during that time. You could have been earning, like, say, 30, 40,000 rupees a month. And if you multiply 40,000 rupees a month by even a year, that's like, um, what, like, that's like 4 lakhs, 5 lakh rupees. So you see, you by self learning, you're actually losing opportunity cost. If you do a structured training program, you actually could be gaining 4 to 5 lakh rupees. So it's not cheap. If you think, self learning is actually one of the most expensive things that you guys can do. And I see a lot of people making that mistakes, right? Also, the good part of a structured training program is that you have a network and you have a community. And as we know, network is a really, really big deal in the game industry. And you can really get hired fast through a good network and community, right? Now, the most common mistake, I'm going to let you guys see this meme while I drink some water. Right. The most common mistake that I see guys making is that what people do is that they're like, you know what? I'm going to learn from YouTube. I'm going to learn from Udemy, and they download Blender, and they make a few 3D models by watching YouTube videos, and then they say, like, I'm a game artist. And the truth is that that is not really true. Most people like this, they create an Instagram page, starts posting a few videos, and then start applying to game studios, and then they get rejected, and then they get completely disappointed, right? That is a problem these days, because there's a lot of free resources, everybody, and everyone considers themselves to be a game artist, and unfortunately, that's not true. Right now, I'll tell you first, what you have to do is, before you want to be a game artist, right, before you jump into Blender, before you jump into, like, advanced things like 3D modeling, etc., etc., you have to have a strong base in art. Forget about game art. You have to have a base in art. Okay. I have 7 8 I have about 12 artists who are working under me at my studios, and every single one of them is fundamentally a very, very good artist. They can take a pen, they can take paper, they can make beautiful illustrations, they have all the basic art skills, and that enables them to be good game artists, right? So you can't take the shortcut of saying I want to be a game artist, but I don't want to learn the fundamentals. I want to get straight into 3D art. Okay, you'll be a terrible 3D artist. You are not going to survive long in the game industry anywhere unless your art fundamentals are basically strong. Okay, so what the art fundamental means: drawing. You have to know how to do research for the artwork that you're going to make. You have to know about perspective. You have to know about color theory. You have to know about anatomy, and you have to know about shading. Okay, shading. You have to know these things before you actually get into game art, right? These things are very, very important, and we teach that at G2M in the Gamer to Maker art mentorship program. If you guys are interested, we actually teach this thing from scratch. We have amazing mentors. It's 100% online, and you'll be learning fundamentals of art from scratch before we get you into game art. Right now, people may ask, sir, what about colleges and institutes? And that's the next question from people. Rahul, tell me a good game college. Can tell me a good institute to go for India. And the sad truth is that when it comes to games, there is absolutely no good college. There is no institute for game art. I keep getting these kind of questions. I get people who have spent 4 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupees on all kinds of useless courses, and at the end of it they learned nothing about game art. They are just lost. They've lost their money. And I keep getting these really, really sad stories in in my inbox. So please be very, very careful, especially in India, about joining any kind of game institute. Right, there is no good game art or institute college in India. That's the sad truth. Okay, which is fundamentally why I started Gamer to Maker. I started a game art mentorship program because there was nothing available in India for people. Okay. Now, the other option, of course, you have that you can go abroad to study, but the problem is that the cost of going abroad to study is more than a crore, right? If you have 1 crore rupees, if you have rich parents, you have a rich dad, you're most welcome to spend 1 crore rupees and go abroad to Vancouver Film School or whatever to learn game art. And that's really good. But for those who don't have it, it's tough. Okay, so next question is, what is my roadmap? Rahul, if wherever I am, how can I learn game art? How can I be a game artist? And the first step is that you should learn the basics of art. Now, you can actually learn basics of art by actually going to a BCA program, by going to BFA. Sorry, you can do a Bachelor of Fine Arts program. There are many, many colleges in India who offer Bachelor of Fine Arts. So BFA is a good option. But BFA doesn't teach game art. You'll only, for 3, 4 years, you'll only learn the basics of game art. Now, if you want to learn it much faster, you can actually join G2M. We teach that stuff in just a few months. But that's one option. And now, for example, if you finished your BCA or your BTech or whatever, and you want to be a game artist, it's kind of really hard to go back and do BFA altogether, right? So that's a problem. So after you've learned the basics of art, you need to learn game art specialization, right? Whatever it is, 2D art, 3D art, modeling, rigging, animation, concept art, production art, whatever it is. Once you've learned the basics, you have to learn the specialization of your game art. And then a very, very important thing is to build your portfolio, because I don't know if you guys know me, but it's almost impossible to get a job as a game artist without building a good portfolio. So that's really, really important. You have to build a good and strong focused portfolio. The portfolio cannot just have like 100 random things. The portfolio has to be focused toward the job you want. It has to focus on the specialization. It has to be focused on the game studio. Once you have built a portfolio, then you'll be able to get a job, or you'll be able to do freelancing or whatever it is that you want. Okay, so this should be your roadmap to be a game artist. Learn the basics of art, learn game art specialization, build a portfolio, and then you can get a job, or you can be a freelancer, or do whatever it is that you want. Okay, lastly, now I want to talk you about one of my the case studies of one of my students. So this is Harshina. Harsh got hired as a technical design intern by Zynga India very recently. I think just last month he got hired. And what he told me, like, I had a call with him, and he joined, and he said, like, sir, I'm in Zynga, I got a job as technical design intern. And I said, congratulations. And I said, listen, tell me honestly, did you benefit from the G2M program? Because he actually, within 4 months of 5 months of joining the program, he actually got a job. And I asked him, listen, did the G2M program benefit you? And he says, look, he's actually in a game college right now in central India. Like, I'm not going to tell you which game college it is. It's a famous game college that's supposed to teach game design, but actually teaches game art. And he said, sir, within about 3 to 4 months of joining Gamer to Maker and attending your classes, I learned more than I learned in 3 years of college. And he got a job. 3 to 4 months within the G2M program, he actually got a job. So it's not about the degree, it's about the practical learning you get. You need practical learning, you need learning from mentors, and not just some degree where some instructors come and teach you some random stuff. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the tool and software used in the game industry. um, very important is Photoshop, right? Every single game artist needs to know Photoshop for sure, right? Photoshop is really important. And then you have Adobe Illustrator as well. Okay, next up you have Maya, and you have, just give me a second, guys. Okay, so there's Photoshop, there's Adobe Illustrator, and then there's Maya. For 3D, the most popular one, especially for larger game studios, is Maya. And then, of course, there is Blender. Now it's not negotiable. You need to know Photoshop. Okay, if you want to join the game industry as a game artist, you need to know Photoshop, and preferably you need to know Adobe Illustrator as well, because these two are really used a lot. Now, talking about Maya and uh, talking about Maya and Blender, there are a lot of discussions about which is the better one, which is the better software, and let's talk about that first. Okay. Okay. So now I recommend Blender for people who are beginning in the game industry, people who want to start being as artists. I definitely would recommend Blender. And these are the advantages. Firstly, it's easy to learn, okay, because there are lots of resources online, a lot of YouTube videos, a huge community for Blender. So Blender is really easy to learn. Next up is beginner friendly, and it's open source. Maya is expensive. You can actually purchase, you can actually get a student license, but I would say Blender is still the best, still is the best option. Okay. Now, very important is that you have everything in one software. You have video editing, you have sculpting, you have texture painting, you have 2D animations, you have procedural modeling, you have rendering engines. Everything is there within Blender. So you don't have to do something in some other software and then bring it into Blender. You can do everything in Blender. Blender is really good. And the interesting thing is that once you've learned Blender, it's actually quite easy to pick up Maya or pick up Max, right? Because the fundamentals of the tool are same. There's just a very slight difference between Blender and Maya and Max. Once you know Blender, and actually at this point, a lot of studios are actually changing over to Blender as well. So you can actually get a job at a mid-sized studio if you know Blender quite well. And most importantly, it can run on a low-end PC. You don't need a really good PC or a high-end laptop to run Blender. Okay, Blender is really, really awesome. Now, within G2M, within the mentorship, we actually teach Blender. We teach from beginning to end of Blender. And those of you who are interested in knowing more about this, you can ask questions in the Zoom call after this. Right. Next up, career prospects for game artists. A lot of people say, Rahul, what is it like? Can I make a good living as a game artist? What are the salaries, etc., etc.? I'm going to tell you about that. There are more than 500 game studios in India, guys. More than 500 game studios. Okay, most of them need game artists. Game artists are in huge demand. Good quality game artists are in huge demand. So don't worry about whether your career is good. Don't worry about whether AI is going to take your job. It's not. AI is not going to take your job. There's no chance of that happening. Game artists, game designers, game programmers are the future. It's an absolutely massive market, and it's a market, it's an industry that is growing hugely. So yes, game artists are in absolutely massive demand. Okay, it's not at all difficult to get a job as a game artist in India if you have a decent portfolio and you have different skill and you have decent skills. And at good studios, I mean studios like Zynga, etc., I have known people who've got starting salaries at interns as like 50,000 rupees a month, 60,000 rupees a month, right? So you can get a really, really good starting salary as well, right? And you can also go abroad. I know a lot of people who've gone abroad, who are working in AAA, who are working in EA, who are working in Ubisoft, etc., in game design and game art roles. Okay, now when it comes to portfolios, salary, etc., I'm going to be giving a lot more detail to you guys in the Q&A session, which is going to be after this. Okay, and there's going to be a live mentoring session right after this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to answer some audience questions uh, at this point. But right now, I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to scan QR code right now. So scan this QR code and you can submit your questions, and you'll also get the link to join the mentorship session that is going to be happening on Zoom. Because the problem is that I can't really talk to you. I mean, I can't hear you guys. I can't interact very well with you on YouTube live. I can talk to you like it's like one way street, and Zoom is much better that way. But remember that the Zoom audience size is limited, so please join it. Uh, the call is going to be starting at 10 o'clock sharp. Okay, so make sure that you scan this QR code, make sure you submit your questions. And this, if you can't, if for some reason you're not able to scan this QR code, the link is there in the description of this video as well. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to scan this code while I have a glass of water. Okay, so now let's look at the audience, let's look at the questions. All right. All right. Okay. So Sankar Rajesh says, Sir, I'm an architecture, finally a student. What all possibilities of gaming design? Um, right. Okay. I'm going to put the Zoom link also in the description. Hang on a second. Okay. I've put the Zoom link in the chat, and I have also put, I'm going to put the Zoom link in the description also. Just give me a second. Okay. So now, guys, so for the mentorship session, the Zoom link is actually in the video description, and I've also put it in the chat right here so you guys can see it. Okay. All right. So Surya is saying, do good studios really pay 50K for an intern? Yes, they do. 50K for a good intern from a good program is not a big deal these days, guys. I don't know. There are a lot of myths about how. See, there I know game artists who also get paid bad salaries. But if you join a small startup studio which is struggling and doesn't have much money, I mean, programmers are going to get paid less, artists are going to get paid less, designers are going to get paid less, everybody. It's in all fields, right? Even if you want to be a doctor and you want to join a crappy small hospital, you're going to get a bad salary. If you join a big multinational hospital, you're going to get a really good salary. So yes, a lot depends on the studio, a lot depends on the portfolio, right? 50K is very, very much possible. People from gamer to maker have made 50K joining game studios 100%, right? um the meeting will be about game art questions, right? There is no obligation to only ask about the G2M art course. It's a general mentorship session. You're most welcome to join, ask questions about game art careers, etc. Okay, as simple as that. um okay, yeah, looks like someone just joined. Okay. uh Okay, right. Somebody's asking about the age bar. I joined the game industry when I was 33 years old. Okay, so a lot of you guys who are in their 20s, 25 years old, please don't think that 25 is your. I joined the game industry when I was 33 years old. There's absolutely no problem in joining. Okay. Definitely. If you're a public servant and you want to continue in this field, my job's definitely possible. Right. And someone saying, have I completed basics in drawing? Okay, so I'm going to answer all of these questions, guys. It's very, very difficult to answer all these questions. Most welcome. Scan this code, join the Zoom call. I'm going to be joining the Zoom call in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to answer all your questions. It'll be much easier to answer these questions over there. Okay, next up, to end, I'm going to tell you guys a few basic fundas, guys. Remember, the most amazing thing is to do what you guys love. Okay. I used to be doing a job in the merchant navy. I used to be earning a lot of money. I was earning like $6,000, $7,000 per month in the merchant navy. I was actually earning a lot of money, but I decided I wanted a career making games, and I decided to become a game designer. And now at this point, I'm a game designer. I'm also an art director. I love my job. I absolutely love my job. It was not easy to make that transition, but remember this thing, guys. Please remember this. Whatever difficulty you face, whatever your parents may say, whatever people may say, if you want to pursue a career making games as a game developer, as a game artist, do so. Don't let anybody hold you back. I promise you, this is the time. Don't miss the opportunity right now, because the game industry in India is booming, right? Don't waste your life by doing something else that you don't love, that you're not passionate about, right? Trust me, you'll spend next 10, 20 years regretting it, thinking, I wish I had done that job. I wish I had made that move. I wish I had, joined the game industry. I wish I was making game art, etc. Game making games as a designer, artist, programmer, whatever, is a wonderful job as long as you like games, right? If you're into games, if you play games, if you're passionate about it, it is a wonderful, wonderful job. I promise you, you will not lack for money, right? In the beginning, you may get a starting salary, but if you grow, if you do well, the money will come, right? And you would look forward to Monday. Monday is going to be like, yes, Monday is the day I work. Monday is the day I work on my game. It's a wonderful feeling to do what you love. I work a lot. I have my own day job, and I have gamer to maker, and I have like 4 kids. I work literally, I'm not kidding you, I work 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I enjoy it. I love it because I really love what I do, and I earn well, right? In about 13 to 14 years experience, I managed touch wood to do well for myself. I managed to kind of rise really high in the game industry and earn really, really well. And at this point, the reason I really do this, really I do Gamer to Maker and I hold these live events and I talk to you guys is because I've been teaching at game colleges, right? And I see there are so many of you guys who want to do this, who want to be game makers, who want to be game artists, and you don't have good guidance. You have no one telling you the truth. You have no one mentoring you, which is why my mission is to help at least 1,000 people become professional game makers, if not more. It's the mission of my life, and I love teaching. I like teaching. Um, I love mentoring people, and it gives me the most joy. It gives me is the most joy that gives me is when one of my students pings me on WhatsApp and says, "Guess what, sir? I got a job in this company. I got this. I got that." It makes me so happy that you cannot believe it. That is the happiest thing, feeling that a teacher can get when his student actually gets a job, becomes successful, and they say, "I made this game and I got this salary." It's a really, really good feeling. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm gonna end this call now. So once again, don't forget, I'm gonna once again post in the comments. I'm gonna post a link to the Zoom call. The Zoom call is starting right now. So join the Zoom call. And if but you'll only be able to ask your questions if you submit your questions here, right? Submit your questions here. Otherwise, I'll not be able to take your questions. This is where you submit your questions. Submit your questions in this using this QR code, and I will be taking up your questions um, during the Zoom call, which is going to be starting right now. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed the live. I will see you in just a couple of minutes. And for those of you who are not joining the Zoom call, thank you so much for being here. uh, all the best, and keep track of me. You can follow me on Instagram. You can, oh, by the way, guys, all of you, please right now go and hit that subscribe button. Please go to my channel and hit that subscribe button because I keep posting videos about game development, etc. Hey, Sankalp. So, guys, right here you can see Sankalp Jajodia is one of our game designers from Gamer to Maker who has just joined Nukebox Studios in Bangalore. He's one of our big success stories. So say hi to him, and Sankalp, if possible, do join the Zoom session after this. It'll be good to see you, and maybe you can also talk to people about your experience as well. In general, Sankalp just joined the game industry, joined Nukebox Studio in Bangalore. So hi Sankalp. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go now. Submit your questions here. Scan karo, submit karo, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much. Have a good night. I'll see you guys around. Let's go.